St. Mary's Peace Church in Seattle was packed with 300 guests waiting for the wedding ceremony to begin. Philip Andrews, 32 years old, a logistics business owner, was at the altar nervously adjusting his tie when he heard a commotion from the entrance. His bride, Amanda Silver, 28, stood frozen at the church entrance in her wedding dress, pale as a ghost, and in front of her, blocking the way, was Patricia Andrews, Philip's stepmother. She was holding a large envelope, and her voice echoed throughout the entire church. "This woman is an imposter. She is not who she says she is. I have proof." Philip froze. Amanda was paralyzed, and 300 guests held their breath. Patricia walked up to the altar with firm steps, envelope in hand like a weapon. "She says she's Amanda Silver, that she grew up in foster care, that she never knew her parents, but she's lying. I investigated, hired a private investigator, and I discovered the truth." Amanda was trembling, tears beginning to fall, and when Patricia opened the envelope and revealed what was inside, documents, photos, preliminary DNA test results, the truth that came out was not what anyone expected. It wasn't an exposé of a con artist or a fortune hunter. It was something much more shocking, much more impossible. And when Amanda finally spoke, when she confirmed what the documents said, Philip realized he was about to marry someone who shouldn't even exist. Before we continue with this thrilling story, subscribe to this channel to always receive special stories like this one and hit the bell so you don't miss any new videos. 6 months before that devastating moment at the altar, Philip Andrews was having one of the worst days of his life. He had just lost an important contract, was fighting with his stepmother about managing the family business, and desperately needed a strong drink and good company. He went to a discreet bar in the Belltown neighborhood. He didn't want to be recognized. He didn't want business talk. He just wanted to forget. And that's where he saw Amanda. She was sitting alone in a corner of the bar, idly stirring a glass of wine, looking out the window with an expression Philip recognized immediately. Loneliness. Not the temporary loneliness of being alone in a bar, but deep loneliness, the kind you carry in your soul. Philip didn't usually approach women in bars, but there was something about her, something that pulled him in. "May I?" he asked, pointing to the empty chair. Amanda looked up. Brown eyes, dark hair in a simple ponytail, no elaborate makeup, pretty in a natural way. "It's free," she said in a soft voice. They started talking, not typical flirting conversation, but real talk, about frustrations, about loneliness, about the feeling of being lost even when you have everything. "I've worked at the same company for 6 years, said Amanda. "Same desk, same job. I wake up every day and wonder if this is it, if this is all life is." "I inherited my father's company," Philip replied. "Everyone thinks it's luck, a privilege, but it's a prison. I didn't choose this. It was chosen for me. You want to do something else? I don't even know what I want anymore. And you?" Amanda smiled sadly. "I want a family, it's all I've ever wanted, but it's hard to build a family when you've never had one." "How so?" "I grew up in foster care. I never met my parents. I went from foster family to foster family. None of them really wanted me. At 18, I aged out of the system, and since then I've been alone." The raw vulnerability of that confession hit Philip, because he had a family, stepmother, half-siblings, uncles, but he never felt like part of anything. His mother had died when he was 10. His father remarried 2 years later to Patricia, and ever since Philip had always been a stranger in his own family. "Family isn't just about blood," he said. "Sometimes it's not even about blood. I have family, and I feel as lonely as you do. So we're two lonely people in a bar trying to find meaning?" It seems so. They laughed, and that laughter broke something, opened a door. They talked until the bar closed. Then they walked the streets of Seattle still talking, about everything, about nothing, about dreams and fears and things they had never told anyone. When they finally parted ways at 3 in the morning, Philip knew. He knew he had met someone special, someone who understood. They started dating, and it was different from any relationship Philip had ever had. Amanda wasn't impressed by money. She worked as a data analyst at a small company, earned a modest salary, and refused when Philip offered expensive gifts. "I don't need things," she would say. "I need presence, someone who really sees me." And Philip saw. He saw a strong woman who had survived a difficult childhood, who had raised herself, who had built a life from nothing without family, without a support network, without anything but her own determination. 3 months after they started dating, Philip took Amanda to meet his family. It was a Sunday dinner at the mansion where he grew up, now owned by Patricia, since his father had passed away 5 years ago. Patricia Andrews was 58, elegantly calculating, and had a gaze that always seemed to assess the monetary value of everything and everyone. "So you're Amanda," Patricia said when they met. It wasn't a question, it was a statement with a tone of poorly disguised disapproval. "I am. Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Andrews. Philip told me about you, said you grew up in foster care, that you work as, what was it again? Data analyst." "Ah, yes. And how much do you make, if it's not too personal to ask?" "Mother," Philip interrupted, embarrassed. "That's not appropriate. It's a valid question. If my stepson is going to get seriously involved with someone, I have a right to know about the person." Amanda, to her credit, didn't back down. "I make $56,000 a year. It's not much, but it's honest. And enough for my needs." "And you have no family? No one?" "No, ma'am. I'm alone in the world." "How convenient." Patricia's tone was venomous. Philip was about to protest, but Amanda put a hand on his arm, silently asking him not to escalate. The dinner was tense. Philip's half-siblings, Luke and Marina, Patricia's children from a previous marriage, were polite but distant, clearly following their mother's lead. In the car on the way back, Amanda was quiet. "I'm sorry," said Philip. "My stepmother is one difficult. She doesn't like me. She doesn't like anyone who isn't useful to her. Don't take it personally. But I do, because I saw the way she looked at me, as if I were a threat, or worse, as if I were a con artist trying to scam you. You're not a con artist. I know, but she doesn't know, and she won't know, because she's already decided who I am." Philip held her hand. "It doesn't matter what she thinks. It matters what I think, and I know who you are." But in the following months, Patricia made a point of making life difficult. She constantly called Philip questioning Amanda, made comments about how suspicious it was that a woman with no family appeared in his life, insinuated that Amanda was after the inheritance. "You need a prenup," Patricia said during a business lunch that was clearly a trap. "A robust prenuptial agreement to protect the family's assets." "I'm not doing that." "Philip, be sensible. You barely know this woman. She has no verifiable past. No one can vouch for her. It's a huge risk. She's the woman I love. She's not a risk. Love ends, divorces happen, and when it happens, she'll walk away with half of everything your father built. If Amanda wanted my money, she would have asked for something by now. In 6 months of dating, she hasn't accepted an expensive gift. She hasn't changed jobs even though I offered. She hasn't moved to a better apartment even though I suggested. She doesn't want anything but me." Patricia looked at him with pity. "You're naive, exactly like your father was. And look how that turned out. What does that mean? Nothing. Forget it. But I'm warning you, Philip. This woman is not what she seems. I have an instinct for these things." Philip ignored her. Because he believed in Amanda. He believed in what they had. 5 months after they started dating, Philip proposed to Amanda. It wasn't elaborate. It was in her apartment, after a simple dinner she had cooked. Philip knelt in the small living room and asked the question, "Marry me, please. I know it's fast. I know your stepmother will have a fit, but I don't care. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Amanda was crying. "Philip, are you sure? Your family will never accept me, especially Patricia. She hates me. I'm not marrying my family. I'm marrying you. You are my family now. But what if she's right? What if I am a threat in some way? What if—" "Amanda, stop. You're not a threat. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Marry me." Amanda said yes, and they were the happiest they had ever been. But the happiness didn't last. When Philip announced the engagement to Patricia, the reaction was explosive. "You're insane. You're going to marry a complete stranger." "She's not a stranger. I've been dating her for months." "Months? That's nothing. You know nothing about her past, her family, nothing." "I know everything I need to know." "No, you don't, and I'm going to prove it." Philip didn't understand what she meant, but he found out 3 weeks later. He was at the office when Patricia showed up unannounced. She had a triumphant expression that Philip immediately didn't like. "I hired a private investigator," she said, without preamble, "to investigate your precious fiancé." Philip felt immediate anger. You did what? I did what you should have done. I checked her past. And you know what I found? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There are no records of her before the age of 18. No accessible birth records. No documentation of which group home she was in. Nothing. That's normal for kids in the system. It's not. There are records. There are always records. Unless someone is hiding something. Unless Amanda Silver isn't even her real name. You're being paranoid. I'm being careful and I'm not stopping. I'm going to find out who she really is. And when I do, you're going to thank me for saving you from a gigantic mistake. Philip was furious. But also, for the first time, a small seed of doubt was planted. Because Patricia was right about one thing. There weren't many records of Amanda. She always said she grew up in the system, but never had details. Never talked about a specific group home. Never mentioned social workers or foster families by name. He confronted Amanda that night. I need to ask you something, and I need total honesty. Amanda immediately tensed. What? My stepmother hired an investigator, said she can't find any records of you. From before you were 18. Is that true? Amanda went pale. It's complicated. Then explain. Explain it to me. Philip, my past it's painful. I don't like talking about it, but you need to talk, because Patricia is saying you're hiding something, that you might not even be who you say you are. I am Amanda Silver, that is true, but is it your birth name or a name you chose? Amanda hesitated, and in that hesitation Philip felt his panic grow. Amanda, I need the truth. Now. Tears began to fall from her eyes. It's not my birth name. I changed it legally when I turned 18, because I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to forget everything that happened before. And your birth name was Ikiku. I can't tell you, please don't ask me that. Why? What's so terrible about your past that you can't tell me? Amanda was sobbing now, because if I tell you, you'll look at me differently. You'll see me as a victim or worse, and I can't handle that. I'd rather you leave me than have you looking at me with pity. Philip was torn. He wanted to respect her privacy, but he also wanted the truth. He needed the truth. Amanda, we're about to get married. There can't be secrets between us. It's not a secret. It's protection. I'm protecting you from carrying a weight that isn't yours. Let me decide what I can carry. Amanda wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and told him. My birth name was Ana Beatriz Santos. I grew up in Portland. My mother was a drug addict. My father, I don't know who he was. She had many boyfriends. When I was 5, social services took me away from her. I went to a group home. I was adopted twice. The first family sent me back after 6 months. The second kept me for 2 years, but they were abusive. I ran away when I was 10, went back into the system, kept bouncing from foster home to foster home until I was 18. She paused, fighting to continue. When I turned 18, I aged out of the system, changed my name legally, moved to Seattle, started a new life. Amanda Silver is who I chose to be, not victim Ana Beatriz, but survivor Amanda. Philip pulled her into a hug. That doesn't change anything. It doesn't change how I feel about you, but it changes how you see me. Now you know I come from a terrible place, that I'm damaged. You're not damaged, you're strong, stronger than anyone I know. But even as he said it, Philip could feel something shift, not his love for her, but his perception. Now when he looked at Amanda, he saw layers of trauma he hadn't seen before, and it scared him. Not because it changed how he felt, but because he realized how little he really knew about the woman he was going to marry. In the following weeks, as they planned the wedding, Patricia continued her investigation. She was obsessed, determined to find something that proved Amanda was an imposter, a con artist, anything. And then, 1 week before the wedding, Patricia called Philip. Her voice was strange, not triumphant as he expected, but shocked, almost frightened. I need to see you. Now. It's about Amanda, and it's impossible. But I have proof. What kind of proof? I can't say over the phone. Come here. Alone. Without her. Philip went, with a bad feeling in his stomach. He found Patricia in her office, surrounded by documents. She looked like she had aged 10 years. What did you find? He asked. Patricia handed him a folder. I got access to sealed records. Records from when she was a child, Ana Beatriz Santos. It's true, she grew up in the system, as she said. So she's not an imposter. She was telling the truth. Wait, I'm not finished. I also managed to run a DNA test. I got a strand of her hair when she was here for dinner. I compared it to a database of missing persons. And Philip, I found a match. Philip felt his heart race. A match? With who? Patricia looked directly into his eyes. With your family, with Andrew's blood. The world stopped spinning. What? Amanda, Anna Beatrice, is genetically related to the Andrews family. She's not a random con artist. She's part of the family, somehow. Philip fell into a chair. That doesn't make sense. How? I don't know yet, but DNA doesn't lie. She carries Andrew's genes, and I'm going to find out exactly how. I'm going to run a full test, compare it with your DNA, with mine, with my children's. I'm going to find out the exact connection. Does she know this? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And Philip, you can't marry her until we know, because if she's... Patricia didn't need to finish. Philip understood what she was implying. If Amanda were a relative in some way, a cousin or worse. You can't say anything yet, said Patricia. Not until we're sure. The full test takes a week. It arrives exactly on the wedding day. Are you suggesting I get married without knowing? I'm suggesting you wait, that you don't do anything drastic based on partial information, because if I'm wrong, if it's a lab error, you'll have destroyed your relationship for nothing. Philip was in a panic, but he agreed. He would wait. He would marry as planned, and pray that the test showed it was a mistake, that Amanda wasn't a relative, that it was all an impossible coincidence. But deep down, he knew. He knew something was about to explode, something that would change everything. The following week was torture. Philip tried to act normal, but Amanda noticed. You're being strange, she said 2 days before the wedding. What happened? Nothing, just nervous about the wedding. It's more than that. Did your stepmother tell you something? Why do you ask? Because she's acting strange, too. She keeps looking at me in a weird way, like she knows something. Philip almost told her, almost revealed everything. But he had promised Patricia he would wait, so he lied. It's nothing, just pre-wedding stress. Amanda didn't seem convinced, but she let it go. The wedding day arrived. Philip was at the altar, anxious not from normal nervousness, but from terror about what was about to happen. The DNA test results had arrived that morning. Patricia had read them, and she had called him. I'm going to reveal it in the church, she said, in front of everyone, because it needs to be public. It needs to be impossible to deny or hide. What did the test show? You'll find out together with everyone. But Philip, prepare yourself, because it's worse than I imagined. Much worse. And now Amanda was entering the church, and Patricia was blocking the way, and everything was about to explode. But before we continue and discover the impossible truth about Amanda, leave your like here on the video, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and hit the bell so you don't miss any new story. What do you think the DNA will reveal? Is Amanda related to Philip, or is it something even more shocking? Also, tell me which city you're watching this video from, and I'll mark your comment with a special heart. Now, let's get back to our story. Patricia was in the middle of the church, envelope in her hands, 300 pairs of eyes fixed on her. Amanda was frozen at the entrance, wedding dress trembling as she trembled. Philip at the altar, torn between running to protect his bride or discovering the truth that was about to destroy everything. Patricia, stop this, said Philip, his voice echoing through the church. Whatever you've discovered, this is neither the time nor the place. It's exactly the time and the place, shouted Patricia, because you were about to make an irreversible mistake. You were about to marry this woman without knowing the truth about who she really is. She opened the envelope and pulled out documents, walked up to the altar, forcing Philip to look. DNA doesn't lie, Philip. I ran the full test. I compared her genetic material with ours, and I found a match, a 50% genetic match. Philip felt his blood freeze. 50% means... It means she's your sister, shouted Patricia. Half-sister, technically, same mother or same father. You can't marry her. It's incest. A shocked murmur swept through the church like a wave. Amanda let out a cry of horror. Philip felt his knees weaken. No, he said. No, that's not possible. My mother died when I was 10. She never had another daughter. Not your mother, interrupted Patricia. Your father, Robert Andrews. He had an affair, had a child out of wedlock, and that child is her. Patricia pointed at Amanda with an accusatory finger. Amanda was crying but shook her head violently. No, that can't be right. I don't know who my father was, but it can't be. It can't. DNA doesn't lie, repeated Patricia, triumphant. Robert Andrews was the father of both of you, which means you're siblings, half-siblings, and this marriage is an abomination. Philip looked at Amanda, saw the terror in her eyes, terror that mirrored his own. Because if it were true, if they really were siblings. Show me the test, said Philip, voice trembling. Show me the full results. Patricia handed over the papers. Philip read, and there it was, black and white. A 50% match between Amanda's DNA and archived DNA, a sample from Robert Andrews that had been collected years ago for a routine medical exam. But there was more. Philip kept reading, and he saw something Patricia hadn't mentioned. Wait, he said. Wait. This here shows a mitochondrial match. Mitochondrial DNA is passed down through the maternal line. If Amanda had the same father as me, we wouldn't have a mitochondrial match. Unless... He looked at Patricia, and he saw something on her face. Something that wasn't triumph, it was fear. Unless it's not my father we share, Philip said slowly, pieces falling into place. But my mother. Amanda is my mother's daughter, not my father's. Patricia went pale. That can't... The tests must be wrong. The tests are correct, said a new voice. A voice from the back of the church. Everyone turned. An elderly woman was standing. She was in her 70s, greying hair, eyes that were exactly like Amanda's, and like Philip's. Who are you? Asked Patricia. The woman walked down the aisle with slow but firm steps. My name is Marianne Santos. I was a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital in Portland, and 28 years ago, I helped hide a terrible secret. Amanda's eyes widened. You. I know you. You were one of the aides at the group home, the only one who was kind to me. Marianne nodded, tears in her eyes. I was, because I knew who you were. I knew from the day you were born, and I've spent all these years trying to protect you. Philip was confused. Protect from what? What's happening? Marianne took a deep breath. 28 years ago, a pregnant woman arrived at my hospital. She was in premature labor. She was dying. Terminal stage cancer she had hidden from her family. She knew she wouldn't survive the birth. Philip felt the world start to spin. My mother. You're talking about my mother, but she died when I was 10. She didn't die when you were 10, said Marianne softly. She told you she was sick but hid the truth. The truth was that she was pregnant. With you, Philip. But it was a twin pregnancy. Absolute silence in the church. Twin? Whispered Philip. You're saying I'm a twin? Not exactly. Dizygotic, fraternal twins, you and Amanda, born together, but your mother Helen was dying, and she made an impossible choice. Amanda was crying silently, hands over her mouth. What choice? Asked Philip, even though he already knew. He could already feel the truth. Helen asked me to hide one of the babies, to give one up for adoption, because Robert, your father, was having affairs. He was distant, and she knew. She knew that if she died, if she left 2 babies for him to care for alone with Nanny's help, one would be neglected, or both would be. Marianne wiped her tears. So she made a mother's choice. She kept one child, you, Philip, so he would have everything. Name, inheritance, family. And gave the other, Amanda, to the system, hoping she would find a loving family that couldn't have children. But I didn't find one, said Amanda, voice broken. I was returned, abused, abandoned. I know, and it haunts me every day. I tried to follow you, but the system wouldn't let me. I could only see you occasionally, and when you grew up and left the system, I lost contact. Until I appeared in Philip's life, Amanda finished, and you found out how. I saw a picture of the 2 of you in the society pages, the engagement announcement, and I recognized it. The resemblance between you. Not obvious, but there. Same eye shape, same face shape, and I knew. I knew you had found each other. Against all odds, the separated twins had been reunited. Philip was trying to process. It was too much, too impossible. So we... Amanda and I are siblings? Twins, corrected Marianne, separated at birth, by the desperate choice of a mother who wanted to protect you both, but in different ways. Patricia was stunned. But that means Robert didn't cheat on Helen, that he didn't have an affair? Robert did have affairs, said Marianne. Many. Helen knew. That's why she made the decision she did. She didn't trust that he would care well for 2 babies alone, especially not if one of the babies was a girl. Robert wanted an heir, a son for the company. She gave him that, and tried to give his daughter a chance at a loving family. Amanda broke down, fell to her knees right there at the church entrance, sobbing. 28 years of pain, abandonment, abuse, all because a mother she never met tried to protect her and failed. Philip ran to her, knelt beside her, and hugged her, not as a fiancé but as a brother, as a twin who should have been by her side her whole life. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm sorry for everything you went through, alone, while I had everything." Amanda cried on his shoulder. "It's not your fault, you didn't know." "But I should have known, I should have been told." "No one knew. Not you, not me, not your father." Marianne approached. "Robert never knew. Helen made me promise secrecy. Said if he found out, he would try to bring Amanda back, but not out of love, out of control, out of ownership. She didn't want that for her daughter." Philip looked up at the elderly nurse, who had carried the secret for decades. "My mother, where is she buried? I know she died when I was 10, but I was always told it was sudden, unexpected." "It was cancer," said Marianne, "that she hid from everyone for years, since your birth. She had only a few months to live when you were born. But she fought. She fought to stay for you, to see you grow up a little. She died knowing that at least one child had a childhood with her. And I never knew I had a sister, a twin, who was somewhere suffering. She didn't want you to know. She didn't want that weight on you." Philip looked at Amanda, his bride, his sister, his twin. "We can't get married," he said, the obvious but still painful realization. "I know," whispered Amanda, "but I won't lose you. Not again. I spent 28 years not knowing you existed. I won't spend any more time without you in my life." Amanda looked at him, eyes red from crying. "How? How do we do this? How do we go from engaged to siblings? How? I don't know, but we'll figure it out together." Patricia had been watching everything in silence, and then, to everyone's surprise, she began to cry. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry for exposing it like this, for doing it this way. I thought I was protecting you, Philip. I thought she was a threat. I didn't know. I didn't know the truth." Philip looked at his stepmother, and for the first time in years he saw not a calculating woman, but a woman who genuinely cared, in a twisted, manipulative way. But she cared. "You knew you would destroy the wedding," he said. "You could have told me in private. Why here? Why like this?" Patricia wiped her tears. "Because I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, that you would choose to marry anyway. I wanted witnesses. I wanted it to be impossible to deny or ignore. You humiliated us. I know, and I'll carry that. But Philip, you can't get married. You can't. And you needed to know before making an irreversible mistake." She was right. However cruel the method was, she was right. The priest, who had stood in shocked silence during the entire revelation, finally spoke. I think there will be no wedding today. But perhaps in place of a wedding there can be a reunion, a reconnection, healing." Philip and Amanda looked at each other, and slowly nodded. "Yes," said Philip, "not a wedding, but the start of something else, of a relationship we should have had since birth." They stood up, still holding hands, and turned to the congregation of 300 people who had come for a wedding, but witnessed an impossible reunion. "I apologize," said Philip, his voice amplified by the microphone. "I know you came for a wedding, and there won't be one. But we discovered something today, something impossible. Amanda is not my bride. She is my sister, my twin, separated at birth and reunited by accident 28 years later." A murmur went through the crowd, but it wasn't judgment. It was fascination, shock, and on some faces, tears of emotion. "I don't know what happens now," Philip continued. "I don't know how we navigate this, but I know I won't lose her again. So if you want to stay to celebrate not a romantic union, but a family reunion, you're welcome. If not, we understand completely." No one left. Everyone stayed. Because how could they not? How could they miss what would happen next? The reception that had been planned as a wedding party became something completely different. Philip and Amanda sat at the main table, not as an engaged couple, but as newly reunited siblings, and spent hours talking, really talking, sharing lives. 28 years of stories they had never been able to share. "Did you have a good childhood?" asked Amanda. "Materially, yes. Emotionally, it was lonely. My mother died. My father was distant. Patricia tried, but I never felt like a real part of the family. And I had nothing materially, but also nothing emotionally. I guess we both grew up incomplete. Both of us were halves waiting for the other half." Marianne joined them later, bringing an old box. "Your mother gave me this," she said, "before she died. Asked me to give it to you when you found each other. She knew. Somehow she knew you would find each other." Philip opened the box. Inside was a letter, written in shaky handwriting, the writing of someone very ill. "My loves," Philip read aloud, tears beginning to fall. "If you're reading this, it means you've found each other. Against all odds, my twins have been reunited. Philip, forgive me for not telling you, for letting you grow up thinking you were an only child. But I feared your father would use Amanda as a pawn, as property. I wanted her to have a chance at a life without the shadow of the Andrews name. And Amanda, my daughter I never knew beyond the day you were born. Forgive me for giving you away. It was the most difficult choice I ever made. But I did it out of love, because I wanted you to have a family that loved you for who you are, not for what you represent. If you're reading this together, it means I failed. It means you didn't find a family. It means you suffered, and that breaks my heart wherever I am. But it also means you found each other. And maybe that's the gift. Maybe the two of you together can heal what was broken by the separation. Love each other. Take care of each other. Be the family you always should have been. With eternal love, Mum." There wasn't a dry eye at the table. Philip and Amanda cried. Marianne cried. Even Patricia, sitting nearby, cried. "She loved us," whispered Amanda. "Our mother. She loved us. She did, in the only way she knew how, even if the way was broken." They stayed there, holding hands, crying for a mother they never really knew, for a stolen childhood, for 28 lost years, but also crying in relief, because finally, they weren't alone. In the following weeks, everything changed. Philip insisted that Amanda move into the family mansion, not as a girlfriend, but as a sister, as a legitimate heir. "Half of everything should be yours," he said. "You're Robert's daughter as much as I am. You have an equal right. I don't want money. It's not about money. It's about recognition, about belonging. You spent your whole life being rejected. Not anymore. You're an Andrews, your family, and you will be treated as such." Patricia surprised everyone by completely supporting this. "Philip is right," she said. "Amanda is an heir, and more, I will add her as my heir as well, because my children have a sister now, and family takes care of family." Luke and Marina, Philip's half-siblings, embraced Amanda as a sister immediately, without hesitation, without resentment. "We always wanted more siblings," said Marina, "and you're the best sister we could ask for." But the adjustment wasn't easy. How could it be? One day Amanda and Philip were passionate fiancés. The next they were siblings who couldn't even think of each other romantically. "It's strange," Amanda admitted one day, a month after the revelation, "to look at you and feel not romantic love, but something deeper, a connection I can't explain." "It's the twin connection," said Philip. "I read about it. Separated twins report feeling an inexplicable bond when they reunite, as if part of them always knew the other half existed. That's what we felt in the bar, that first night. It wasn't attraction, well, not just attraction, it was recognition, two halves recognizing each other, and we mistook it for romantic love, because we didn't know another kind of love existed, a family love we never had." They sought therapy, together and separately, to process the trauma of separate childhoods, to process the shocking revelation, to learn how to be siblings when they had been trained to be lovers. The therapist explained, "You experience something called genetic sexual attraction, a documented phenomenon where close relatives separated in childhood can feel attraction when they meet, because the brain doesn't recognize them as relatives. But now that you know the truth, you can retrain those connections. You can build an appropriate relationship." And they did build it. Slowly, painfully at times, but they built it. 6 months after the wedding that didn't happen, Amanda was living completely established in the Andrews mansion. She now worked in the family business, not out of nepotism, but because she was genuinely talented in data analysis and logistics. "You're better at this than I am," Philip admitted. I was always forced into the role. You chose it. You should do what you love, what you really want to do. I've always wanted architecture, space design. Then do it. I can handle operations. You can focus on creating. And that's what they did. Restructured the company. Philip became the creative director. Amanda became COO. And together, they built something bigger than either could alone. 1 year after the revelation, they held a private ceremony, not a wedding, but an official recognition. A ceremony where Amanda legally changed her name to Amanda Silver Andrews, where she was officially recognized as the daughter of Helen and Robert Andrews, as Philip's twin. "Welcome to the family," said Philip during the ceremony. "Officially, finally. I finally have a family," replied Amanda, crying. "After 28 years, I finally belong." Marianne was there. The elderly nurse who had kept the secret for decades was finally free of the burden. "Helen would be proud," she said, "of both of you, of what you've built from an impossible situation." 2 years after the revelation, Amanda met someone, Daniel, an architect who worked with Philip. They fell in love naturally. And this time there was no confusion, no misread genetic bond. It was real love. Simple. Right. "Do you approve?" Amanda asked Philip nervously before their first serious date. "I approve if he treats you well, and if he doesn't, I'm going to have a big brother talk with him. We're twins, you're not older. I was born first. 3 minutes earlier. It counts." They laughed, and it was the laughter of a real family. Of siblings who bicker and love each other, of a connection that was finally what it always should have been. Philip also met someone, Caroline, an art gallery owner who appreciated his design skills. She knew the whole story, impossible not to know. It had been news all over the country, but she didn't mind, or rather she admired how they had handled it. "You took an impossible situation and made it work," she said. "That's rare, special." 5 years after the wedding that never happened, Philip and Caroline got married. And who was the maid of honor? Amanda. Because of course it was. She was his sister, his best friend, his other half that had been lost and now was found. And 6 months later, Amanda and Daniel got married, with Philip as the best man. "It's strange," someone said at Amanda's reception, "to think you almost married your brother." "It's not strange," replied Amanda. "It's a miracle, because if we hadn't met in that way, maybe we never would have met. The universe brought us together in the only way it knew how, and then it showed us the truth, so we could have the right relationship, not romantic, but familial, as it always should have been." 10 years after the revelation, Philip and Caroline had twins, a boy and a girl. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. "I won't separate them," Philip vowed as he held the babies. "No matter what happens, they'll grow up together. They'll know each other, always." Amanda was a doting aunt, always present, and her own children, she had 2-3 years apart, grew up with their cousins as siblings. The children didn't fully understand the strange story of how their parents met, but they understood the essential. Family sometimes comes from unexpected places, and love, every kind of love, is worth fighting for. Patricia, now over 70, had become a doting grandmother to all the grandchildren, biological or not. She had apologized 1,000 times for the way she revealed the truth, but eventually everyone agreed that however cruel it was necessary. "If you hadn't done it," Amanda said once, "we would have gotten married, and when the truth eventually came out, because it always does, it would have been devastating. You saved us from that." "It wasn't out of kindness," Patricia admitted. "It was out of protection, but yes, I'm glad it worked out." Marianne lived to see the reunited twins thrive. She died peacefully at 86, knowing the secret she kept didn't destroy lives, but eventually saved them. At her funeral, Philip and Amanda spoke. "This woman carried a burden for 40 years, said Philip, "the burden of a secret that wasn't hers, but she carried it out of love, love for our mother, and love for us, even though she didn't know us. She followed me when she could," added Amanda, "in the group home, in the foster homes, never too close but always there, a silent angel trying to protect. Thank you, Marianne, for keeping the secret and for finally revealing it when it was time." 20 years after the wedding that didn't happen, Philip and Amanda were sitting on the porch of the Andrews mansion, now truly a home for both of them. "Do you regret it?" asked Amanda. "How everything happened? That we couldn't get married?" Philip thought honestly. No, because marrying you would have been a mistake. A beautiful mistake, but a mistake. What we have now, this sibling bond, this family connection, is stronger than any marriage could have been because it's based on truth, not on confusion or misunderstanding. I don't regret it either. I spent my whole life alone, thinking no one wanted me, that there was something wrong with me. And then I found out there was nothing wrong. I was just separated from my other half. And when we found each other, even in the wrong way, it fixed something in me. In both of us. They fell into a comfortable silence, siblings who had been lovers by mistake, twins who should have grown up together but didn't, family that had to find each other through the most tortuous path possible, but they found each other and built something better than romantic. They built a home, a family, a connection that would survive everything because it was based not on passion that fades, but on blood that never changes. Thank you, Amanda said suddenly. For what? For not rejecting me. When you found out the truth, you could have. It would have been easier. But you chose to stay. You chose to be my brother even though it was strange and complicated. You're my twin, my other half. How could I reject a part of myself? Easily. Many would. I'm not many. And you deserve a family that will never reject you. Never. Amanda leaned her head on his shoulder, and Philip put his arm around her. Not a romantic embrace, but a fraternal one. Protective, eternal. Because in the end, the story wasn't about a cancelled wedding. It wasn't about genetic sexual attraction or revealing DNA or dramatic family secrets. It was about connection, about two souls who recognized each other across the void of decades of separation, who found each other in the wrong way but turned it into the right thing. It was about a mother who made an impossible choice out of love, who separated twins hoping to protect them both but ended up hurting them both, but whose final love still guided from beyond. It was about family that is more than blood. That is choice. That is forgiveness. That is accepting impossible truths and building something beautiful from them. And it was about Amanda and Philip, twins separated at birth, reunited by accident, almost married by mistake, but finally siblings by choice, by love, forever, because some stories don't end with a wedding kiss. They end with something better, with a sibling's embrace, with a family finally complete, with halves finally whole, and that was their story. Comment down below "family found" so I know you made it to the end of this video, and I'll mark your comment with a special heart. And if Philip and Amanda's story moved you, I have an even more surprising one to share with you. Just click on the video that's appearing on your screen now, and I'll tell you everything. A big hug, and see you in the next thrilling story. Bye-bye.